Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're taking a look at a few cards that are popping up as people are speculating on how the game will look moving forward. This past weekend was interesting, but mostly dominated by Ishizu tier limits, and because of that it's very difficult to give certain things much credit. However, for decks like Kashtira, this weekend might certainly be a sign of things to come, since going into next week, the decks that people are playing probably won't be as strong as the Ishizu tier limits, so we could see Kashtira perform even better. On top of that, we have the usual influences from over in the OCG with their new sets and tournament results, resulting in more buyouts and price spikes over here. Let's get started. To kick things off, we're going to take a look at Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, which is becoming increasingly popular as a counter to the Kashtira strategy. Now with Ibli on your opponent's field, they can only link summon or normal summon, which means that they either have to crash Ibli into one of your monsters burning the battle phase, or normal summon something and link it off. With so many of the Kashtira monsters being high level, like Fenrir and Unicorn, you can't special summon them out since you now control a monster, so you would have to normal summon an Ash Blossom or something and make Donner the link 2 for hire, or something like that. Alternatively, you could also use Lingaribo to try and link Ibli off right away. However, while each of these is fine, they can potentially ruin you if your opponent has used Unicorn or Mind Hacker to rip a monster or two out of your extra deck, so sometimes you'll have to play multiples or find different ways to out it. Kind of weird, but Ibli is definitely a legitimate side deck card, and with players looking for ways to beat Kashtira, which is expected to be the best deck of the next format, Ibli seems to be the answer that a lot of people are turning to. Because of this, Ibli has spiked way up in price. The original Secret Rares from Flames of Destruction are up at $35 each, while the Ultra Rare Megaton reprints are around $15. Of course, with just the two printings, this should have been easy to see coming. On top of that, in things like Orcust, before people would only need to play one copy of Ibli, but now you can play multiples and they're good to see. So a lot of players are probably scrambling to find those one or two extra copies, which is starting to strain the market's supply. If you guys have other cards that you would prefer to side against Kashtira and you don't intend to use your copy of Ibli, you can definitely look at offloading it now while the price is high. I think that there's a really solid chance that we see Ibli in the upcoming Maze of Memories side set, so be very careful of how many copies you're holding on to. The next card we have is Mitsu the Insect Ninja. So overall, I think that ninjas are an archetype that people don't really expect a lot from. They seem cool and their art is really nice, but historically they've never really done anything on the competitive scene, and while using ninjutsu arts to go into Dark Samorg and then flipping anti-spell fragrance on your opponent was kinda cool, this was never really a consistent top tier strategy. Now, however, ninjas have a lot of cool new cards from the last couple of sets and could be a legitimate combo deck that has the ability to top and maybe even keep up with some of the format. Ninjas were featured in a game on the live stream of YCS Leon, and a lot of players that I've talked to have told me about picking up ninja cores just in case the deck starts to take off. Mitsu is a cool card for the deck. It functions as an extender, but it can also provide a monster effect negation if you have a ninja face down on your side of the field. It's a weird interaction since Mitsu flips itself face down, but you don't even mind because you can still fuse with her as a fusion material. Anyways, with people deciding basically out of nowhere that ninjas have potential, everyone that disregarded ninjas as being bad initially have suddenly turned and want to pick up ninja cards. Because of that, Starlight Mitsus have jumped a lot from the $60 or so that they were at before to now being $95 to $100 each. And then even the regular ultra rare copies, those were like $1 or under before. They're now up at $4 per copy. Definitely a big jump out of nowhere, but with Darkwing Blast being such a recent set, this card won't be reprinted anytime soon. If people can actually make ninjas work going into the next format, expect Mitsu to continue its trend upward. Of course, we have no idea if the deck will be able to keep up with other decks at all, but hopefully this deck will be able to steal some unexpected wins this format. Alright, so this one is pretty ridiculous to me, but apparently Hungry Burger is a card that an actual Yu-Gi-Oh deck is able to use now. In Wild Defenders, we have the Nouvelle archetype. I probably botched that. I think it's like Nouvelle, something like that. I haven't spoken French in a long time, guys, but this is a brand new ritual archetype, and they seem a little bit gimmicky, but they all do things where they try to special summon out another monster that's like a level higher than them. Well, it turns out that the archetype's boss monster has an effect that lets you tribute an opponent's monster to special summon a copy of Hungry Burger from your hand or deck. Now, just summoning Hungry Burger itself is probably just an added bonus, right? Like, it's not really worth running Hungry Burger just for that. But being able to tribute an opponent's monster as a cost is really, really crazy, like something like Layer of Darkness, so of course they're going to play Hungry Burger. Honestly, this buyout is definitely one of the most random ones we've seen in a while. However, let's keep in mind that Hungry Burger only has one printing ever from back in Magic Ruler, the third set ever printed, so this is like an extremely old common card from the third set that ever came out. Because of this, this card is technically now $3 a piece, and I understand that some players will want to use original printings of Hungry Burger when they try this deck out. However, we should keep in mind that Hungry Burger will most likely get a reprint in Wild Defenders itself, so the card will be accessible and you won't have to fight with other players for copies of Hungry Burger for your Nouvelle deck. Nonetheless, this is definitely a cute card for you guys to try to dig up out of your bulk and try to offload because it is now worth a few dollars. Speaking of Wild Defenders, there are a couple of other cards that are trending right now because of the Transcendric archetype. The first one is Adam Adorned Archasaur, and I want to give a shout out here to Robert Davey, who I ran into at the Seattle Regional again this weekend, who mentioned this card to me. Archasaur is a key card in the dinosaur deck, as on summon it lets you pop a dinosaur monster from your hand or field other than itself, and then search for a double evolution pill from your deck. The pill is important because it summons out Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and popping a card isn't so bad either because it can trigger the effect of Baby Ceratosaurus or Petite Pteranodon. Now, even though dinosaurs haven't seen too much play recently, I think they could definitely be useful this format. Lost World putting a token on your opponent's side of the field could definitely be annoying for Kashtira, and using Ultimate Conductor Tyranno to flip things face down and shut off Shangri-Ira seems pretty worth it as well. Archasaur has two different printings, but each of them has now jumped up a decent amount. The original Secret Rares from Eternity Code were about $7 to $9, they are now $16 a piece, and the Ultra Rares from the Megatons have gone from being $1, $1.50 to now being $3 to $4. Dinosaurs were a really popular deck for a while since they were really easy to build with the structure decks and could OTK players out of nowhere. They were really simple to play. So with us going into a pretty wide open format like this, expect a lot of players to turn to dinosaurs as a safety comfort pick. However, I wouldn't expect the prices of this card to get too much higher unless the deck were to start consistently topping a lot of events, which I think is overall fairly unlikely. Dragonic Diagram is another card that has been targeted for a buyout recently, seemingly out of nowhere. Now this card lets you pop a card from your field or hand in order to search for a True Draco or True King card from your deck, and it's a field spell so it is searchable via terraforming. It's been quite a while since True Draco was dominating the format, and for the past several years, Dragonic Diagram has been limited to one. It's strange, but this card seems to have gotten a buyout at a really weird time since Diagram is still currently limited. It does seem like every format or two we get some players speculating that Diagram is going to come back after all. It's just strange that it's jumping after another ban list where it doesn't get moved to 2 or 3. The only things I can potentially think of that might have contributed to this buyout are the new dinosaur support via the Transcendrakes and the unlimiting of True King Lithosagem. We used to use Lithosagem to pop dinosaur cards and then break apart your opponent's extra deck, and with Lithosagem now at 3, I guess maybe you could do that more consistently. I guess it is cool to see it potentially being used again, but I don't think it's enough to justify buying out Diagrams unless you were really convinced that this card is going to come off the list sometime soon. Now, it's not a huge price spike that we saw. Diagram has 3 different printings, all of them secret rares, and the price is anywhere between $8 to $12 per copy, averaging out at around $10. There's not a huge discrepancy between the prices of the different versions yet. However, it's still a notable jump because Diagram was down at around $3 to $5 prior to this seemingly random price spike. So yeah, I don't know if there's like some big tech here that people know about or what, but I probably wouldn't want to move in on Diagrams unless I had some sort of greater confirmation that the card was going to be going to 2 or 3. But if you have a few extra copies, right, maybe you want to save a set or so for yourself if you were a really big fan of the deck, and take advantage of the price spike and offload your additional copies. Alright, Aratama is yet another random card for us to look at, but this is actually already starting to see some usage over in the OCG. Now in Cyberstorm Access, there's a new spirit monster called Sakitama, a level 4 monster that you reveal from your hand, and then immediately normal summon a spirit monster from your hand, which includes itself. So the idea here is that you can summon Aratama, search for Sakitama, then summon the Sakitama, and you have easy access to a free rank 4. The real value here, however, comes in Exo Sisters. Sakitama and Aratama are each a normal summon themselves, so you can still do this combo and be okay to use the effect of Martha later on in the turn. So the idea is that you use the 2 spirits to make Caspitel, then search for Martha and still get to use Martha's effect that same turn, which is a big consistency boost for the deck. Unfortunately, Aratama is an old card from back in Shadow Specters that was only ever printed as a rare. Its one printing came out literally like almost a decade ago. Shadow Specters was 2013, guys. Of course, players are picking these up just to be prepared for when Cyberstorm Access drops, though we don't know what deck will even be able to use it at all, especially considering that Exo Sisters honestly look like a pretty underwhelming deck right now, especially in the TCG. I would suspect that Aratama will get reprinted in an OTS tournament pack or something like that, closer to the release of Cyberstorm Access, but just in case, you guys can definitely check to see if maybe someone left these in the bulk bin at your locals, because historically this card has been relatively cheap. And finally, one last card that I want to talk about for today is Volcanic Shell. So I was really confused by this, but I saw on Road of the King that Volcanic Shell was being played as a tech card in Pearly, which initially doesn't make a lot of sense to me. However, it turns out that all of the Pearly quick play spell cards require you to discard a card in order to special summon a Pearly monster from your deck before granting their effects. Now this means if you're using a Pearly memory every turn, you could potentially burn out of resources really quickly. However, Volcanic Shell is a card that can replace itself and help you to maintain your card advantage fairly easily. On top of that, in the OCG, tier limits are still a dominant deck, and if your opponent makes you mill Volcanic Shell with either a Kelbeck or a yugioh, well, that's now potentially some free advantage for you as well. Finally, I think it is worth noting that Volcanic Shell might be useful in some Edison format decks. I think there's a Plant Synchro deck that uses these cards to discard off of Quick Draw Synchron and Phoenix Wing Windblast, and then shuffle them back with Pot of Avarice. It seems kind of cool. But yeah, so these things combined, Volcanic Shell is something that a lot of players are looking for, particularly these high rarity versions. The ultimate rare version is definitely the nicest looking by a long shot, but those are crazy expensive, with the first editions now up at $95 to $100 and the unlimiteds at around $50. Now after that, the card is pretty cheap. The DT printings are just a couple of dollars, and then we have the commons and rares, those other reprints that should be affordable at under $1 each. But definitely worth noting that the highest rarity versions of these cards is way up there in price right now, so you may want to offload the alties if you have them sitting around and you're not doing anything with them, or you also might want to pick up a set of the DTs or rare versions if you're wanting to play Pearly next format. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. We are finally officially into the next format, and it's going to be really cool to see what people are able to come up with. Given the change in the format, it's definitely a necessary change in my opinion. I think that a lot of the things we saw before just got like too repetitive, but now with a fresh start and kind of like an open chance for anything to do well, I think it'll be cool to see what happens. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today, and also what other cards are currently trending on the market. And if you haven't already, do make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.